Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 550. Good grief. For the 5th of May, 2019. Richard Saunders here with you from Sydney, Australia. What a big day we had yesterday, folks. The Australian Skeptics. We had our flu vaccination day here in Sydney, and it was quite a success. I certainly got my flu vaccination. Lots of people rolled up to get their flu vaccination. A report coming up on next week's show because it just happened and I need time to edit all that together. And then after all that, in the evening, I went to Maynard's Love Shack number 2 in Glebe at the Red Bar, and what a fun night that was. In fact, that was such a success, there's going to be a Love Shack number 3. And you really haven't lived until you've seen Maynard in action as a DJ. But what's coming up on this week's show? This week's show we have Jessica Singer from the Australian Skeptics talking about her visit to Skeptics in the pub in London, and the segment does give general advice and insights about running a Skeptics in the pub. I've been to quite a few Skeptics in the pub around the world. Skeptic in the pubs around the world. It's a great opportunity to get together in a very informal way to chat about skepticism and science. Advice, tips, and insights about running Skeptics in the pub coming up on this week's show. And we have MSSX. What is MSSX? The Merseyside Skeptics are having their 10-year anniversary. We speak to Alice Howarth and Laurie Phillips and see what they've got cooked up, lined up in the pipeline for their 10-year anniversary. Also, this week, we look at astrology, an article by Ron Reagan, the son of Ronald and Nancy Reagan, about his mother's belief in astrology, and we play a clip from Australian TV decades ago where astrologers were debating skeptics. Then to round off the show, Maynard heads for Skeptics in the pub and chats to pubbers and asks the big question, should Australian skeptics carry on with our $100,000 prize for anybody who can prove their claim of the paranormal or the supernatural? Now, over recent years, the James Randi Educational Foundation's $1 million prize has really been pushed to the background. It's not so active anymore. However, the Australian Skeptics still have an upfront offer of $100,000, and we get the opinion of pubgoers. Is this a good thing, or is it dated? More announcements from me at the end of the show, but now it's time for me to run downstairs, being careful not to wake up the sleeping cat behind me. Hello, Hen. Henny. I just woke her up. Hello. She's sleeping in a plastic box. Run downstairs, make myself some mushrooms on toast. While I'm doing that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. Joining me now on the line, all the way from Liverpool in the UK, it's Alice Howarth and Laurie Phillips. Hello.
Hi there.
Hi.
Great to catch up with you. And, a certain mutual friend of ours called Michael Marshall suggested I might contact you because unbelievably, the Merseyside Skeptics are celebrating 10 years. What's the celebrations? What's going on?
It is our 10-year anniversary this year, so we are planning a little party. There's no QED this year, so we thought we'd give ourselves almost just as much work by organising a one-day event in Liverpool. We've got a host of speakers that are going to be speaking throughout the entire day, evening entertainment. It's going to be a fantastic event. Laurie can tell us about some of the speakers we've got.
Yeah, so we're going to be emceed by Dave Annick. So he's well known to the UK skeptic contingent. He's He's spoken at many different Skeptics in the Pubs. He's a magician, so he's going to do all sorts of...
He's going to do our evening entertainment.
So we've got our very first speaker ever at MSS was Chris French. So he's going to be speaking for us again. He's a key figure for us. We've got Marion Jones, an investigative reporter who's got some incredible stories. We always tell the story of when we see his desktop of his laptop when he gives a talk. It's incredible, all the different folders he's got there.
Yeah, he's done an incredible amount of investigative journalism, so he's always got a great story.
No idea
tell.
What he's going to talk about this time, but it's going to be incredible. We've got Emma McClure. So she gave one of the most well-attended talks we've ever had. So she's a solicitor, specializing in prison and public law. So she's going to be talking about parole and legal aid and all things like that. And we've got someone called Alice Howarth.
Yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of a talk. I have not decided what that's going to be on yet. Either potentially HIV, but we'll see. We'll see. I'll come to a decision soon.
Yeah, and then so the final one we've announced so far is Simon Singh. So he's going to be talking through some of his skeptical activities in the past and Good Thinking Society activities. So how he set Good Thinking up and all that kind of stuff. And then we've got one speaker yet to announce.
So we've still got a few little things to announce for the day on the Saturday. So it's going to be a packed day on the Saturday, and we're going to have that evening entertainment from Dave Annick, which will be fantastic. He's a great magician and really great entertainer. So it's going to be a great event. And then we have the following day. Every year at Merseyside Skeptics, we run a Skeptics picnic in the park. We kind of try and have a family-friendly event where we can just sit and chill in the park and enjoy the sunshine. Hopefully this event is going to be July 6th. So
it's almost guaranteed sunshine in Liverpool. Yeah.
So it should be nice. We're going to have that picnic in the park on the Sunday as well for people to join us with.
It's a nice event where people come who've not been before as well. It's kind of, this was my first time at Merseyside Skeptics, was coming to a previous one of these picnics. So it's a great little event. So that's happening the day after. So anyone that comes along to MSSX is obviously very welcome to join us again in the park the next day. So
it's MSSX is in the Roman numeral for 10. We've got a website, mssx.co.uk. It's July the 6th in the Liner Hotel in Liverpool. It's £29 for a ticket.
Wow, what a lineup, folks. And that's Saturday, July the 6th at the Liner Hotel. And it's only £29, 29 quid. And you can find out more by visiting mssx.co.uk. I'm jealous. I sounds like a lot of fun. I wish I could be there. But it must be interesting to reflect on 10 years of any organisation, really, and how things have changed. Alice, what have you noticed in your time?
So I've been involved with the Merseyside Skeptics Society for at least half of those 10 years, and it's a great group in their focus on everything to do with the social aspect of skepticism. So it's people coming together, having a great time together, and the great ideas that come from that. And it means that, we're constantly involved in all sorts of different activism. We go along to we've been involved in going to psychic events and trying to understand how that works. And all of these ideas just come from us all kind of hanging out together and having a good time at our social events. And it's the primary focus. And I think it's why the Merseyside Skeptics Society has lasted for 10 years, is because that is such a core element of the group.
And Laurie, I understand that you must be of a similar mind to me in that I think it's very important to get out there and do your own investigations and not just sit back and have all the information come to you on the internet. And I think you've been involved in some investigations yourself. Yeah.
So early on, when I first joined the Merseyside Skeptics Society, we had an investigation with Good Thinking Society. They ran it, where we looked at a bunch of psychics who were operating in Blackpool. So a few of us kind of were mic'd up with little spy cameras, and we went in and basically had a psychic reading. And it turned out they were all identical word for word, no matter. Yeah. we all made up some elaborate backstories. We all had all sorts of, a myriad of different problems. We were expecting cold reading and all sorts of things coming back from them, but no, it was virtually word for word.
It was very scripted.
Yeah, it was incredible. But that's all up on YouTube. So if anyone wants to look into the past and have a look at that one, it's still there, I think.
All right. Well, folks, that's a very interesting investigation. And if you want to see that for yourself, I will add a link to the show notes. Or, Alice, if people just want to generally check out what's happening with the Merseyside Skeptics, where can they go?
Our website is merseysideskeptics.org.uk, and you can find loads of stuff that we're up to there. So we have 3 podcasts, Skeptics with a K, which some of your listeners might already know. And then Marsh hosts Be Reasonable, which is a fantastic monthly podcast where he interviews somebody with views outside of the mainstream. And then we have an occasional podcast, Incredulous, our panel show that doesn't quite air quite as often as we'd like, but it is a very fun podcast. And all of that's on our website at merseysideskeptics.org.uk.
Well, that's the place to head to, folks. I can certainly recommend those podcasts. I get a quite an interesting experience every month when I listen to Be Reasonable. Sometimes it just does my head in. It really does. It's a great podcast, nevertheless. Well, Alice and Laurie, thank you very much for letting us know about the one-day event coming up. I wish I could be there. I'm sure it will be a great success. But for now, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Richard. Cheers.
Brisbane Skeptic Society, 2019 Skepticamp. That's right, Skepticos, it's time once again for our sort of annual Brisbane Skepticamp on the 9th of June. This is a free event where members of our community, you, get to present whatever topic you are passionate about. We are very excited to be at the slideshow this year. This funky venue is in the West End, but not right in town where parking is terrible. They have their own cafe on site and beers with vegan treats. Outside food is welcome, so if you don't like their options, you can get something delivered. Sounds too good to be true. There are even comfy couches if you need time out. This year we are very pleased that our friends from the Gold Coast Skeptics are co-hosting. We also have musical entertainment lined up thanks to Conspiracy of One. With many other venues the West End has to offer, I'm sure there will be a few drinks after we wrap up as well. Apply to speak. Send an email to skeptimite@bigpond.com to secure a spot. That's skeptimite@bigpond.com. Please include your name and the title of your talk, if you have a title ready. That's Brisbane Skepticamp for 2019 on the 9th of June. For more information, head to brisbaneskeptics.org or just follow the link in this week's show notes. As many of you know, I love the good old-fashioned skepticism. I'm known, or the term is, people like me are called Bigfoot skeptics. These are people who love the good old-fashioned stuff, the ESP, the monsters, the Loch Ness Monster, for example, Bigfoot, Yowies, Yetis, telekinesis, reading minds, talking to the dead, that sort of thing. That's where my heart lies in the skeptical realms. We have very important issues, of course, like climate change denial and vaccination, anti-vaccination people. And I think the record shows I have a very strong track record of activism when it comes to particularly the anti-vaccination crowd. But yes, my heart lies in the old-fashioned stuff. And one of those topics is astrology, good old astrology, which comes and goes. It's not as much in vogue anymore as it used to be, but still millions of people around the world firmly believe that the position of the stars and the planets will affect your character and the outcome of events and so on and so forth. And recently I've been reminded of something that happened way back in the presidency of Ronald Reagan, where there was a period of time where Nancy Reagan was influenced by the advice and opinions of her astrologer by the name of Joan Quigley. Now, Joan Quigley died in 2014, aged 87, but for a period of time during the Reagan presidency, she was certainly in the news. And an article appeared very recently in the Washington Post, and I must thank listener Gary Goldberg for helping me with this part of the story. This is an opinion piece written by Ron Reagan. Now, Ron Reagan is the son of Ronald and Nancy Reagan, and he makes some very strong points, so I'll just read that article to you now. This comes to us from the Washington Post on Sunday, the 28th of April 2019, by Ron Reagan. Ron Reagan is a writer and political commentator living in Seattle and Tuscany. Astrology. In 1981, having scarcely begun his presidency, my father was shot in the street by a young man trying to impress a famous actress. My mother, inside out with worry and feeling helpless to prevent such things from happening again, fell prey to an astrologer who promised to warn of any particularly inauspicious days for my father to leave the house. This arrangement had little influence on his presidential schedule, but produced considerable embarrassment when it was revealed sometime later. My mother was foolish, of course, but given the stressful circumstances, I'm inclined to forgive. I'm less charitably inclined towards the charlatan who took advantage of her. Anxious or not, it's past time we abandoned astrology. Such pseudo-scientific piffle is at best harmless folly. At worst, it belongs to a family of more pernicious intellectual lapses with serious consequences. Climate change denial, creationism, the notion that we can install a reckless incompetent in the Oval Office without inviting disaster. Let's consider astrology, innocuous as it may seem, as a kind of gateway drug. It softens the mental ground for equally unsound but far more harmful ideas. If you believe in the stars, you can believe anything. Astrology, which seems to be enjoying a renaissance among millennials and Gen Xers, is only one sad example of our flabby-minded post-truth era. A disturbing number of people are foregoing vaccinations for their kids or getting their news from assorted crackpots and hustlers on social media. Reasoning is a hallmark of our species, but we're forgetting how to do it. Magical thinking is a bad habit we need to break. We are not owned by our own reality. Nature doesn't care about politics. Jupiter doesn't determine your character. You do. If you want to be influenced by the stars, buy a telescope. And that was by Ron Reagan, published in the Washington Post on the 28th of April, 2019. But it prompted me to do a little bit of digging and research, and I found some interesting snippets, audio and video snippets online from Joan Quigley talking about her time advising Nancy and Ronald Reagan. And here is some of what she had to say.
I timed all the press conferences. I timed most of the speeches. I timed when he would take Air Force One, when he would take off, and when he would land. I did a chart for Anthony Kennedy to nominate him as a justice for the Supreme Court. It was an almost impossible day to find a really good time. It had to be so exact to the second. And someone was sitting in the audience with a stopwatch and gave a signal for the president to announce that he was nominating Anthony Kennedy for the Supreme Court.
That I am today announcing my intention to nominate United States Circuit Judge Anthony Kennedy to be an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court.
They wanted to announce that Ronnie was running for a second term in early December of 1983. And I said no, that it wouldn't work well. And I delayed it till the last Sunday in January of 1984.
Adjust it or not.
I found a wonderful chart which was just 5 minutes before the news.
I am therefore announcing that I am a candidate and will seek re-election.
She was not only interested in the president's safety and having me do for him the things that I'd done during the 80 campaign, but she was also interested in improving her own image. And I was very occupied with that at first. I picked a time on the day they left that was an excellent time for what we wanted to accomplish. And I also changed their evil empire attitude by briefing them on Gorbachev's horoscope. By the time we were working on the Washington summit, she was calling me 2 and 3 times a day.
So according to her, she had quite an influence determining the time of major events for the Reagans, when they would go on overseas trips, when this would happen, when that would happen, when the best time to make a political appointments was. And I also came across this very short clip of Nancy and Ronald Reagan.
No, that's bad luck.
I have learned not to argue with her superstition.
And I think it shows in that instance anyway that Nancy Reagan was prone to superstitions and magical thinking. I also came across in my archive something I think I've mentioned or played before on the Skeptic Zone over the years, and this is from 1992, an Australian chat show, audience participation show called Couchman, which was popular at the time, where he would basically bring in two camps of opposing views and discuss the issue. And the topic of one of those episodes was astrology. I thought I'd play you a short clip. The voices you will hear are Ian Bryce from the Australian Skeptics, astrologer Ray Webb, and I can't see anything recently on Ray Webb, although this was a very long time ago, and the late, great Barry Williams from the Australian Skeptics as well.
Look, let's get down to tin tacks here, because there's one very basic question that I'd really like to hear you discuss, and that is, why should the position of the planets have any influence on how we turn out to be, on our personalities, on our characters, even the choice of occupation that we might make, what might happen in our lives? Why should that be? Can anyone explain that for me in 10? Can anyone explain that for me in 10 seconds? Just up the back.
The answer to that's very simple, Peter. The forces that govern the universe are quite well known, and they have been for about half a century, and the forces do not account for any of those interactions. The planets do not affect our personalities and the events that happen to us in that way.
That's an opinion.
Well, can any of you? Ray, can you explain for us simply how the position of the planets at the time of our birth might in any way affect what sort of people we are?
Well, Peter, I think that first of all, the purpose of astrology is not to foretell the future. No one.
Precisely what you claim to do.
No, it is not what we claim to do. It's what you people keep claiming we do. We don't.
Just listen to an astrologer for 30 seconds.
Yeah, okay. Just explain for us why the position of the planet should in any way influence our personalities.
The position of the planets, when we're talking about the solar system, the most important thing in the solar system is the sun. You switch off that sun, you've got a heap of rocks. Having said that, there are 4 major seasons: summer, autumn, winter, spring. A plant that will grow in the spring will not grow in the summer. I won't bore you. It goes on. There are. Well, we're all intelligent.
No, I think it is accepted by certainly people who grow things that plants are influenced by the sun and the moon and the stars.
A little further. We are part of all we have met. Arthur Bowman will tell you that every time in the universe is putting its stamp impeccably and forever on every part of that universe that started at that moment, including people. A winter child is like a winter flower. A summer child is like a summer flower. We are different. I take a step. I'm different to the person who is one step behind me and different again to the person on either side of me. The thing that makes astrology work best is free will. Free will. Because you can have 50,000 people born at the same instant, under the same planetary influences, and they, exercising their God-given free will make 50,000 individual different decisions, and each one of them can be right for you.
Yes, but hold on a minute. Does that mean that all those people who were born at the same minute that I was are also all those things that I am, on the bad days, malicious, pessimistic and selfish? And
yes, but they've got the free will.
Logical twin, like a person born in the same hospital around about the same time as you would have a similar experience or life pattern.
But does that mean, by that definition that Ray's just given us, we should be almost identical personalities?
No, not necessarily, because we're taking into account the genetic processes that arrive from the two family lines that at conception then meet, and that individual is obviously going to display a lot of those genetic processes. And it is the environmental influences acting on those genetic processes which is going to make that person what they are.
I'd like most of what they're saying is cop-outs from what they're claiming. I mean, they're giving you all the... hang on a bit. Can't the skeptics have a say? Aren't we allowed?
No.
Everything they started out... They started out...
Free will, free will!
Yes, well, isn't that denying the whole basis of your load of rubbish you talk about?
Okay, wait a minute. Go ahead, Barry.
It's denying all these influences.
Make your point.
It says I will use it this way. Look, I can use this chair like that, or I can sit on it. Look, I can fall over.
Take it easy, Ray.
You can do whatever you like. Look, free will.
Well, I'm all in favour of it.
So what was your point, Barry? What were you going to say?
Look, the point is, they make a statement about this influence they have, and then for the rest of the 5 minutes, they've been giving you the outs from it, so that when it doesn't work for you, well, it might be a genetic influence, or it might be a free will, or it might be anything else. I mean,
it is free will.
Well, I'm agreeing with you about free will. Why do you have to then overlay your free will with this absolute tripe?
It's not.
I mean, wait a minute. Hold on a second. I'm going to break this up. I'm going to break this up here. Hold on. But look, just at the beginning.
Now, I think Barry may have been a little forthright there in his opinions, but it was interesting to try and make sense out of the convoluted logic of the astrologer. Now, it seems to me that many people still enjoy reading their horoscopes in the newspapers every day or their favourite magazine, and that's all very, very much silly fun. And I don't particularly think that's of any detriment, but there are, again, many people who take it very seriously, who spend a lot of money seeing astrologers and take advice based on the mystical movements of the stars.
Allora ciao, io mi chiamo Professore Dave, io ti voglio insegnare tutte le cose sulla scienza. Parliamo di fisica, di chimica, biologia, astronomia, matematica e tante altre cose. Guardami su YouTube, arrivederci. Hey everyone, this is Professor Dave. I want to teach you about all kinds of things regarding science. I want to tell you about physics. I want to tell you about chemistry, biology, astronomy, math, and many, many more things. Come check me out on YouTube. The channel is called Professor Dave Explains. Take it easy.
He knows a lot about the science stuff. Professor Dave Explains.
Well, it might be Skeptics in the Pub here in Sydney, first Thursday of the month at the Occidental Hotel. But I'm with Jessica Singh, a long-time committee member on the Australian Skeptics here in New South Wales. You've recently come back from a trip to the UK.
That's right. I was in London, and unfortunately it meant that I had to miss the last Sydney Skeptics in the Pub, but it did mean that I could go to the London Skeptics in the Pub.
Now, this is one of the oldest, or I think the oldest, Skeptics in the Pub. It was the whole idea was started by an Australian, wasn't it?
An Australian, Dr. Scott Campbell, who used to be on the Australian Skeptics Inc. committee, and for professional reasons moved to the UK and started Skeptics in the Pub over there, I think inspired by the politics in the pub and science in the pub model. He's the founder.
That's great, and one day we'll remember exactly what year it started here in Sydney. I think it was around 2003, but somebody will know. But anyway, so tonight we had a great night. So you come along, people.
We did. We had a great night.
Yeah, we had a really good night. We had people come along, they just order a beer or a drink of their choice, have a bit of dinner, chat, and then we have a speaker every month on varying science topics. Tonight was all about rip currents at the beach.
That's right. And the speaker was Dr. Rob Brander from UNSW, and he researches rip currents. It was the subject of his PhD, and he's done a lot of work to overturn the accepted knowledge and models of rip currents, and apparently they're far more complex and variable than people believe.
It was enlightening tonight, and it was enjoyable, and he was a great speaker. So, folks, that's if you ever have a chance to see him talk.
Yes, and he does community talks, particularly in the summer. He goes up and down the coast and speaks at surf clubs, talking about the science of the surf, teaching people about rips and beach safety and how to spot a rip.
It's all about science. It gets back to the science. Anyway, so you're very familiar with Skeptics in the Pub here in Sydney. You've been...
Yes, I've been coming for a while, and it's my job to organise the speaker each month. So, So it was actually really refreshing to be able to go to a Skeptics in the Pub and not have to worry about it and do anything. Just turn up. It was fabulous.
And where was the venue?
It is at the Monarch Hotel or the Monarch Pub in Camden Town. Mm-hmm. So it's near Camden Markets, which is great. And it's a rock and roll pub. So it has a sound system. Oh. So chatting to the organiser, Sid Rodriguez, who's been old friend, who's been involved in Skeptics for years and years and years. Yeah. It was interesting that they have exactly the same issues that we have in terms of a venue. Finding a venue that will have you, that serves good food, that has a sound system, so you don't have to bring your own sound system. So when you, Richard, started Skeptics in the Pub in 2003, and then it got bigger and bigger and bigger, so we decided to have a monthly speaker. We had a pub which didn't have a sound system, so we had to bring our own sound system. Yeah. And then we've moved venues a couple of times, but a major reason was to find a venue with a sound system, and that's how we've ended up at the Occidental, because not only do they have a sound system, they have a projector, they have a screen, so they're really, really well set up for us to have an event with a speaker and a presentation.
There are a number of things that you must check off, folks, if you're considering doing a Skeptics in the Pub in your area. There's a checklist. It has to be accessible. If you're in a city, near public transport's the idea. A room where you can have privacy.
Exclusive use is really important. That's what we've found over the years, because we've been in venues where we didn't have exclusive use, and then the sound system broke down, and it was horrendous. In fact, we had to, on one awful occasion, had to tell the speaker, look, just stop. Nobody can hear you. And another time, we did have the sound system, and Ian Bryce, committee member and our resident rocket scientist, was giving a very detailed and interesting presentation. Was that the one about gravity waves? It might have been.
It sounds familiar.
Something like that. Anyway, down the other end of the room, there was a very raucous birthday party going on.
Yes, it didn't help, did it?
And I think it was that made us decide we have to find a new venue where we have exclusive use and a sound system.
That's right, and it's just common courtesy to the speaker, so they're not fighting with other noise or distractions in the room, and everybody can give their full attention. So that's what we have at the moment, which is fantastic. But getting back to London,
it's so much. Well, We just talk about ourselves, don't we,
Oh,
Richard?
we do.
London was really good. It was different, of course, but the same. And that was nice to be able to walk into a room full of strangers, but to know that we all had something in common, which was skepticism and science communication, and just be able to bowl up and have a meal and chat with people.
So it was just, you have a drink, a meal, just like here?
Just like here.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's so important. It helps the social atmosphere, doesn't it?
It does. And I met quite a few people, and from America, from Europe, from the UK, someone from the UK who lived in America now, but happened to be back.
It happens here.
Happened to be back in London at the time. Yeah, we've had people coming through town from Hong Kong.
That's right.
Or New Zealand.
And they find out about it, and they're here for a week. And luckily for them, that includes us.
It coincides with the Skeptics in the Pub, so that they can come along. Quite a few people have come along that way.
Now, is it a monthly event in London?
It's a monthly event, and they, like us, have a meetup group. So you can sign up to their meetup group, and you get a very nice welcome message from, I think it's Carmina, welcoming you to the group and saying, I hope you come along. And so just like the Sydney Skeptics meetup group, you get a little email in your inbox when they announce a function, and then you get reminders.
Fantastic. There you are, folks. It's all a good idea. We've had many happy years of Skeptics in the Pub in Sydney. Many speakers on all sorts of topics. It doesn't run itself. You have to organise it. You have to put in some footwork, and you certainly do that.
Yes, and I was chatting with Sid about that, and I'm quite envious of the UK because, of course, with the larger population, they have a larger pool of potential speakers to draw upon. And they also have a really good network via Facebook of Skeptics in the Pub organisers to trade ideas and ask for ideas as to speakers. Because the distances are relatively short compared with Australia, they can really leverage. The groups can really leverage off each other when it comes to finding speakers and getting speakers to the different groups. Whereas here, I suppose our closest group is Canberra. That's not too far away.
It's not too far away. It's not exactly close.
Not exactly close, but Brisbane and Melbourne are the next closest.
I think another tip I would give anybody considering it is don't think you have to have a talk every month on skepticism. Absolutely not.
Oh, no. And in fact, the speaker at London Skeptics in the Pub was a guy called Alex Clegg, and he's the, I think, Projects and Communications Officer from Sense About Science.
Right.
Yeah. Now, Sense About Science, that's the UK charity which was founded in 2002 to promote the public understanding of science. And Alex was talking about their latest public campaign, which is an online tool to encourage and assist people to request evidence for any claims they encounter. So if you read an article or you hear something on the radio or you meet someone and they have a claim, like this cures cancer, you can then use the Sense About Science online tool to send a query. What's the evidence? Please give us your evidence. So that was a really interesting talk, and it sounds like a great tool.
So then that's a great example. And in fact, if you had a skeptical topic every month, I think you'd run out of topics, I guess. People would get a bit sick of it. But people love to hear about frogs and rip currents and all sorts of other science.
Space.
Whenever
we have a spacey topic or an astronomy topic, that's always really popular.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Jessica, for chatting to us about your experience as Skeptics in the Pub in London. And I know there are Skeptics in the Pub, or there is Skeptics in the Pub all around the world. If there's not one in your local area, it might be worth thinking about setting one up. Skepticon 2019. People are finally starting to wake up. Anti-vaxxers, denounced as a danger to public health. Climate science deniers, exposed as ideological zealots. Celebrity psychics have been caught red-handed using trickery. Flat earthers. Seriously? Skeptics must seize this moment, as misinformation is colliding with reality in plain sight. Now is the time for the brightest minds in science and reason to come together to turn the tide against pseudoscience, conspiracy theories, and alternative facts. And naturally, we should do it in Las Vegas. It's more fun that way. Now is the time for Skepticon 2019, October the 16th to the 20th at the Flamingo Resort in Las Vegas. The incredible lineup of speakers includes actor John Delancey of Star Trek and Breaking Bad, Julia Sweeney of SNL and Letting Go of God, string theory pioneer Brian Greene, evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins, ex-naturopath Britt-Marie Hermes, Gwyneth Paltrow's worst nightmare, Dr. Jen Gunter, climate expert Michael Mann, entertainment from illusionist Banachek, comedian Leanne Lord, and we even have a dragon. Plus, hands-on workshops with the Skeptics Toolbox, author book signings, a fresh round of Sunday Papers presentations, and even a 1950s themed party. Register now. October will be here before you know it, so let's seize this moment. That's Skepticon 2019 from October the 16th to the 20th at the Flamingo Resort in Las Vegas. Register at sciconference.org. That's csiconference.org. It's your best bet in Las Vegas.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
I'm just sitting next to Tim Mendham, which is he's at the pointy end of the $100,000 challenge here. And look, Saunders, because he's a troublemaker, has asked me to ask people, do you think that they should just give this whole thing away? Do you think the challenge should be given away? Because you're the guy who takes the phone calls.
No.
No?
You mean the money given away or the whole concept of the challenge?
Yeah, the whole concept of the challenge.
I get messages at least once a week from someone somewhere who's applying for the challenge. So people are very, very keen on it, actually. Once they find out they actually have to do a test rather than just, I say I can fly, here's the money, right? They go, and about 90% of them drop out at that stage.
Wow, okay. Well, they think they can just go, I can fly and here's your cash.
I've had people do exactly that, actually. I've also had people get very aggressive when I say, no, you can't get the money until you get proven. I said, but I need the money now. I've had someone be really, really nasty to me, and I think, well, there's no chance you're going to get the money, mate.
What's the weirdest one you've had? What's the weirdest claim you've had that's never gone any further?
Weirdest claim? Well, there's a lot of them. There was a fellow who was covered in UFO dust.
I'm sorry?
He was covered in UFO dust.
Cool.
He was first of all claiming that he could see dark matter, which was basically the shadows of contrails on clouds, and that was dark matter. He said it runs parallel with the plane. I said, yeah, it's a shadow, right? And then he came down with something else. He said, I filmed UFOs. And he sent me videos, which I then had to follow through. Ever try and do a frame by frame of a video online? It's a bit difficult, right? Because you have to press your pause button all the time. And I finally found what he was talking about. It was a spot on one frame.
So how good are you at being polite? So go, ring, 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 ring.
I'm very polite.
Okay. I've got a claim that's amazing.
Oh, thank you. What is your claim?
I believe that I look good in this suit.
You're an idiot, aren't you?
Does that require extraordinary evidence or not?
I think so. Do you have photographic evidence of this?
Yes, it's not good, but...
Okay, well, I'm afraid, I've looked at the photographs. They're not very good quality. They are a bit fuzzy, right? and it looks like something's moving. Is that you?
Yeah. And then you make a noise that sounds like boo, and you hang up. Look, I've been asking people tonight, should the skeptics be bothered doing the $100,000 thing because it hasn't really gone off? But what do you think?
Well, I like it. When I have conversations with people who think that they can divine for water or see ghosts, it's handy to be able to say, well, give the skeptics a call. They'll give you $100,000.
And they never do they?
I don't know. Luckily, I'm insulated from whether or not they do. But I mean, I guess I'm not doing any of the work related to it.
Okay. Well, I've been asking about the whole $100,000 thing, and should it still keep going, or do you think it's just a bit of a wacky hangover from back in the days?
So my opinions on this are...
Very strong.
Well, you know me. I do have opinions, and I like to share them, often on this podcast. So my opinion of the $100,000 challenge is, I think it's a good marketing tool. I think it's a good way of introducing ourselves to people that wouldn't otherwise be aware.
That's true.
It's a good little marketing tool around the pub, because obviously, Richard distributes the little checks around the pub, which is a good talking point for a lot of people. My main issue with the $100,000 challenge is that I've noticed that in recent years, especially, a lot of the applicants, to the challenge are, well, shall we say, they're not of the type of people that we'd really want to be making fun of. And that is essentially what we're doing in the challenge itself, is it's a bit of...
Which is kind of why we have Tim Mendham on the phone and not you.
Yeah.
Because you'd be going, for sake, please, I'm sorry, go away. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say it to them. No, I'd like to think I'm a bit more tactful than that. But
you would.
But I do think that a lot of the time the people that contact us claiming these powers are maybe themselves in need of some help and some attention, and I don't think that this is the kind of attention or help that they actually do require.
Fair enough. Well, I have a claim. I claim that in this suit and this shirt and this tie, I look as good as some mid-range 90s band that was moderately successful in the UK.
You could definitely be in craft work.
Oh, hell. There you go. Anyway, look, what do you think about the $100,000 challenge?
I think it's great. I hope someone wins it soon. Wow, it's been too long.
Well, I'm pretty close with this suit. I'm making a claim about this suit.
It is quite supernaturally appealing.
Right. Okay. But look, we're talking about if these skeptics have their $100,000 thing that goes off, should they keep doing that, or should they just give it up as a bit of a joke and give it a rest?
No, they should keep doing that.
Okay.
Because I feel like once it's kind of quit, then people have got... They can sit back and just make all sorts of excuses as to why nobody got it without... we need to be able to thrust that in their face and say, well, if you can do what you say you do, then why don't you do this? Whereas if we don't have it there, then we can't...
And what's the one you think that's the most ridiculous that people bring up?
That people have tried?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, I really don't know, Maynard. I'm not entirely sure. I know there's been a lot of dowsers, and I always feel like... what do you call it? With the dowsing rods? There's another name for it.
Look, I'm making a claim here in this suit that I look like some mid-level UK band from the mid-90s.
I think it has to be a pseudo-scientific claim, something paranormal.
So are you saying fashion isn't science?
No, I'm saying... No, you're saying fashion isn't science. Yeah, I'm confused.
Okay. Well,
I'm saying that the claim has to be pseudo-scientific, that we're having to prove. So what is your pseudo-scientific claim about fashion?
Well, that I look a bit like a mid-level band from the 90s, like...
Pseudoscience?
Yeah.
Okay, so $100,000, you've just got to speak to Richard, and you can plan a trial together and work out how you're going to prove it.
Yeah, but look, Richard does look like a band from the 70s. I just don't know which one.
Earth, Wind and Fire?
If only. Richard is a bit, and look, don't take this the wrong way, Richard, but you're a bit like
David Essex.
No, David Essex's manager. Yeah, no, and let me tell you, that is cool. Well, look, thank you very much for your opinion, and obviously what I've worn has had no effect on you whatsoever.
Was that even the question, Maynard?
Well, it was my claim. I was making that claim.
You look very smooth tonight.
Good. There you go. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, Trish said if you have a nice night with someone and you want to indicate to them that it was a nice night, but you might not want to see them again. What sort of language would you use? Trish, will you explain?
Oh, that was an experience.
Yeah, I'd go with something like that. Something that's a little bit vague that they could interpret different ways.
Okay, so people, if you hear that, it's over. Forget it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Now here's an announcement from our friends in Victoria. The Australian Skeptics National Convention will be in December in Melbourne this year, and they've just announced that Susan Gerbeck from Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia and a frequent guest on the Skeptic Zone will be attending this year's convention in Melbourne. For more information, head to skepticon.org.au, and it will be great to see Susan Gerbeck back in Australia. Coming up on next week's show, the report from the flu vaccination day we had yesterday on Star Wars Day here in Sydney, and the Force was certainly with us. We look at a new web series called Fact_Me_Oz. And hopefully we have a new report coming up from Michelle Franklin up in the Northern Territory. But for this week, and thanking everybody for helping us reach show number 550, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics or any other skeptical organisation.
What are you doing?
At the end of the show, he rolls a dice. And
So give me the
Go. Hello, people who stay after the closing music. Yes, once again, it's the
losers. They've got nothing going on in their life except to listen to the end of the Skeptic Zone. A whole bunch of stuff you could be listening to, but no, you're listening to the end of the show, and there's not even any cats involved.
Not necessarily. However,
there's no cats.
Now, as long-term listeners know, we play the dice game, and new listeners, every now and then we roll a 10-sided die 3 times. And you have to use, you at home, you in the car, you commuting, have to use your psychic power to predict what number's going to come up. And we've got a special guest tonight. You are?
My name is Laurie.
And you're going to play along, you see. So in a moment, Jessica's going to roll out 10-sided die. And you have to use your magical predicting power, right? Are you predicting? Look into the future. What number do you predict? It'll be 0 to 9, which is really 1 to 10. But anyway.
Okay, so the answer's not 42.
No.
Okay. Do I have to say it or just think it?
Well, you can think it, but it's more fun if you say it.
Okay. 5.
5. And here it comes.
That's the waveform.
Here it comes. Jessica's rolling now. And 2.
You could have said it was 5 and no one on the podcast would have known.
That's
thought of that, Richard.
I know I'm scrupulously honest. Okay, that was the first go. We're going to do it 2 more times. Oh, so think again. What do you get?
5.
Oh, 5. Oh, just for a change. All right. 6.
Oh, so close.
I know, you're a little bit psychic. All right. Yeah. And the last time, Jessica, get ready.
Oh,
6.
6 again. Only one off. That's luckier than any other number that wasn't 5, surely.